Making your own metal moulding boxes. Part 6. The easy stuff. Sanding, filing, drilling and assembly. You'll remember from the last video that I'd suffered 2 failures in the casting and I had to repeat them, and of course these are the 2 failures. One where we had loose sand fall in the mould there, and one where we had the sand just rammed so tight that steam couldn't get out through the sand and produce these defects, and also stopped it running there because of pressure in the mould. And also because of the very hard ramming, I had these defects known as rat tails. As you can see here, quite nasty defects. And here. So I repeated those 2, and these are the 2 repeats. First that one, no rat tails, so that one's a success. And again, no rat tails here, so that one's a success. What I did to get rid of the rat tails, first of all, I didn't ram anywhere near as hard. That's a bit of a good start because it means the sand's got a little bit of give. This rat tail defect is due to heat expanding the sand where the metal flows over it, and if you can give the sand somewhere to go, something in it to absorb the expansion, and a bit of space I guess does that, so if you ram tight you're asking for this defect. The other thing you do of course is you put something like wood flour in the sand, 1 or 2%, or in my case what I've used was corn flour. Now the only problem here is that with 1% corn flour you'll notice I've got this brownish stain. Now I find that that sort of happens if you get the corn flour above about 0.5%, but it has eliminated the rat tail, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I guess. I find that normal wheat flour is worse than this. It would come out almost black sometimes there. Also, when I first made these, I never used any facing sand, and people said, oh, let's see what they look like with facing sand. Well, there's 2, one produced with facing sand, that one, and one produced without it, that one, and there's not a lot of difference really. There isn't much. The one with the facing sand's got a few more rat tails. I may have rammed that a bit harder too, I don't know, but I don't think so. But finish wise there isn't that much of a difference. And again with a couple of these, that one for example is no facing sand, and that is facing sand. Now yeah, there's a bit of a difference, but gee, it's not a lot. Now that's probably because having used facing sand for a long while, it builds up in your backing sand because it stays there of course all the time, and eventually your backing sand becomes as fine as your facing sand, and at that stage usually what I do is throw the whole lot out and start with a new batch, and I probably really need to do that. The other suggestion that's a point, so these black spots are very rough. Now they can be, and you'll notice that it's exactly opposite on the other side of the casting. That can be due to a bubble actually going from the bottom of the mould through to through the metal and out the top of the mould, or it can just be due to where the metal streams finally meet and they go whack like that and push the stuff in. But it's notable that this happens much more as your sand gets older, and you get little things like this. These are a sign of older sand. Again on this one too, there's rough patches there and there where the metal's met. So as I say, it's probably time I threw this sand out. I mean, some of these came out pretty reasonable, I must admit. I mean, that's a facing sand one, and that's not too shabby a casting. I'm quite happy with that. Borderline rat tail there. I should have had something in the facing sand but didn't. But for the purposes of a moulding box, it's fine. I don't really need to tell you how to file something, I guess, but there's a couple of points I would like to mention. I've covered them before, but it's worth covering again. Do remember that if you look at the casting here, you'll see it's got a taper. This is the taper we put on the pattern to allow it to come out of the sand. but we've put this taper deliberately so that this side, the inside of the box, is wider. Now when you're filing the box, you need to preserve that taper. Now here the low side is this side and the high side is this side. So, but all we need to do is just a little bit of a file along. Help if I tighten the vise a bit more. Just clean the dags off that edge. Remember, we're not after a state of milled perfection here. This is a moulding box, not a, you know, not an aerospace part. That's one. Now, I'll do a little more on that in a minute, I'll show you, but when I move the camera. But let's go back to the side where the gate is. This is the side that'll require most work. Now, what you need to remember here is that inevitably around the gate here, there'll be a little bit of a drawdown in the casting. So when you're filing it, don't try and get this edge dead clean all the way. Just file the worst of the gate off and any dags anywhere else. Again, being careful to retain the taper. Oh, squeaky, squeaky. Just every now and then have a bit of a check with a ruler, just to make certain. Yeah, at the moment I'm still a bit high in the gate, so I can take a bit more down there. You just want to get this as flat as you can without going to extremes, of course. Let's have another bit of a look here. Yeah, now I'm getting close. I've just about got a little bit of a dip there, but it'll be right. Now, what you can also do, if I can shift the camera for a minute, what I have here is just a sheet of wood with some fairly coarse abrasive paper stuck to it with some double-sided sticky tape. And just to finally clean up these sides, I'll see if I can get it around that way if the camera will view it. Yeah, that's not too bad. Was remembering that there's a taper on these sides, as I said before, so you need to hold that so that it's flat. Just give it a few quick slides like that. And I mean, it's not 100%, but it's probably good enough for the job, maybe a little more. Done and dusted. That's good enough for me. And again on this side. Again, remembering to always hold on the correct angle to preserve that paper. Oh, it's not too bad. It's pretty good, pretty reasonable. That's not perfect, but it's not going to be. But that's fine. Now, the idea of maintaining this taper is so that when you've finally got an assembled box, and let's pretend that's in a part of an assembled box, and you strike the sand across there, you will in fact be wiping that edge like that, so that from here to the other side is going to be a nice flat sand edge, and any little dags of sand that hang around there will be very easy to brush off. And that's why you need to maintain that taper. It'll make for a much neater job later when you actually make castings. I'll go ahead and heat treat these now, simply because I can. You don't really need to. I just pretty much do it to everything because it'll drill better, they'll ream better later, and they'll be a bit stronger. But if you are going to heat treat, make certain you do all the filing before you heat treat, because it gets harder when you heat treat, and that makes it a lot slower to file. We now come to the easiest bit of these moulding boxes, simply the drilling of the holes. A little bit of WD-40 I like to put on with the dimples already there from the pattern and then the casting. There's no measuring required, no anything. You've just got to hold it down and drill through. Piece of cake. Now, we're going to have a little bit of, turn that off for a minute, going to have a little bit of bother with these two because the mould's broken away, and I'll show you how we deal with that shortly. You've got to choose your bolt size. I've chosen 1/4 of an inch. You could use 6mm. I don't see any point in going either smaller or bigger than those two. Also, you've got to decide whether you're going to have a size for size hole or whether you're going to use the standard sort of clearance hole. Now, I've opted here for a 1/4 inch drill for a 1/4 inch bolt, which means they're a reasonable fit. Now, I figured that if later I've got to open the holes out to clearance for some reason, well, I can do so. It's just not a problem. Let's do this one, and I'll demonstrate how we handle some of the problem with the broken away mould. At least. Right, now, this one's got a breakaway there. So I'll clean this one out here. Now I've only got the one to worry about, and that's relatively easy. What I'll do, where are we? Here's a short one. I'll bolt the two together. What I'm going to do here is use this table on the bandsaw as a flat surface to help line things up. Before I do, I'll just run a file very quickly over the mating faces. I'm not trying to really clean anything up. I'm just trying to make certain there are no lumps or bumps that are really going to upset anything. I haven't really cleaned much up there, just a little bit. And this end too while we're at it. Okay, now, where are we here? That's the one we've got to clean out. So we bolt those two together through the one hole. I'll tighten that up while holding everything firmly flat down on the table. Most important that we hold it down flat all around. Right. Do we look right? No, we do not. We've got one of them at an angle. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and continue to drill these. No need to bore you any more than I already have. Just that as you drill each one, as I say, just pick up your file and just quickly go across to get any ugly looking lumps or bumps off. You're not trying to produce a flat surface, you know, a fully filed flat surface. You're only just taking any rough high bits off. Well, now it's time to put a few boxes together. Now, I've already done some experimenting, and the first thing I found out was that my brilliant idea about putting a 1/4 hole through a 1/4 bolt was nonsensical, because we are dealing here with sand castings, not with precision machine components. And remember, our sand casting has only been filed, the gate's been filed off, and these faces have been hand sanded, and we've run a file over these quickly, and that's all. So there's nothing very precise about these. We need a little bit of come and go to put them together, and the only way we're going to get that is to open these holes out. So I've in fact made them 1/4 clearance, so that's 17/64. So I've run through all of these. Now let's see what we can do here. The other mistake I made too was when I purchased the bolts, I didn't get enough washers. I forgot that there's 2 washers of bolts. Anyway, never mind, can't win them all. So now what I have here is actually a a slab of granite that was cut out of our new bench, or once new bench, where the sink had to go. So it's a flat surface, and you're going to need to find yourself a flat surface. I guess, if nothing else, maybe a reasonably thick bit of MDF would probably do the job, just as long as you're pretty sure it's flat. Now, I'm going to do this where I've got the gate here on the same side of every one. Yeah, the gate's there, so, alright. Gate. I don't know that matters particularly, but seems like a good idea at the time. At this stage I'll just fumble. I'll just get nuts on each bolt loosely finger tight. Finger tight all around. Now we put a bit of weight on them. And now we just run around and slowly tighten the bolts a bit, just a little bit. Just as if you were doing a cylinder head on an engine, where you progressively tighten it a little bit. Now, having got round once, let's just check. No rock, seems pretty good. So we go around and we tighten them a bit more. Helps if you tighten rather than undo, I guess, doesn't it? Quick check again. Doesn't rock. Good. Now we tighten them a bit more. Looks like I might need to get myself another spanner. They're turning a bit on me. What do we got now? No rock? Good. So now we go around and we'll do a final tighten. Come on. Do it the right way. And the lucky last here. Now, no rock. It might be a very slight bit there, but again, can't expect perfection. These are sand castings, not tool room components. Let's go. Boy, there might be a couple of thousandths of an inch there, but that's pretty good. A little bit there. Now, let's just see whether we got a box that's square. Boy, that's close. That one's a bit wide there. Let's have a look here. Bit narrow. It's very, very close to square, but it's not quite right. It would appear that this one here, oh gee, I don't know. I mean, how close to square do we want it, I guess? Yeah, that's not too bad. That's pretty good, I think. Let's just see how it goes when we put another one that I made before up on top to see whether they mate. Well, they seem to mate pretty well all around. I would call that a successful box. Very slight amount of rock there, but that won't bother anybody. Now, the other thing I've realised is that the method I used to drill through when some of the holes were, the divots had broken off and I couldn't drill them directly, was wrong. That was absolute rubbish. I think now that what one should do, and I'll just take this box apart to demonstrate if I may. Let's say that we had one divot there that was crook. Well, I would go through the act of putting the box together 4 sides, not 2 as I used initially, 4 sides with the weights on, and I might even run a clamp here to make, if I can get the clamp right, I might even run a clamp there to make certain that it's held right. And then, grabbing a drill, I would spot it through like that. I might go right through, or I might, after I've got a good spot, take the box apart and go do it under a drill press. Similarly, if both of them were crook and I had to do 2, come on, fumble fumble, I would again assemble the box 4 sides with the weights on, and to make certain I got it right, where is my little piece of angle iron? It's here somewhere. I would either get something like this in the corner, or if you don't have a block like that, just a piece of angle iron. Just check it with a square to make certain that it's not bent, broken or buggered. If necessary, you clamp 2 like that. Haha. And 2 like that. So that you know you've held it square, and with the weights on you know it's all flat. And then again you come in and drill. Either right through or just dimple, whichever turns you on, and then go drill in the machine, in a drill press normally. But that should guarantee you get the corner right, which I think is important. Alright, let's put these bolts back. So the only thing you really need for this is a good flat surface and a couple of weights to make certain that you get things right. Yep. To me, that's a winner. That's near as damn it to being perfect. So for sand castings bolted together, that's pretty good. I'm very happy with those. So that's that stage, and also this one that I did yesterday by way of experiment. So we now have our two boxes bolted together. Let's have a quick walk around the box, I suppose. So, I mean, there's no pins holding them together yet, but we can at least sort of get an idea of how they're going to fit. I think that's not too unreasonable. They look pretty good to me. Sort of, you know, they're within a few thou of being dead completely lined up. So, and that's the 150 by 200 box. And here we have the 200 by 250 box. Again, when we sit them in the place where the pins are going to hold them, to me, they look pretty good, I think. Those boxes seem to mate quite well. As I say, you know, there's minimal rock. A little bit there, but not much. Considering they're sand castings, I think that's not unreasonable. The next stage, of course, is the pinning, and that will be the subject of the next video.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to catch the next part, fitting the dowel pins.